It's Tuesday, January 18th, and this is now on HNN. As the death toll rises, widespread damage is being reported following the Tonga eruption and tsunami.
More than 5 million Americans tested positive for COVID just last week. I'm Michael George with why numbers are dropping in one part of the country.
This as Hawaii is reporting another record day of new COVID infections. Plus, some airlines are already looking at cutting flights ahead of the nationwide rollout of 5G technology. These stories and more coming up on This Is Now.
Aloha, and thank you for being with us on this Tuesday afternoon. I'm Casey Lund alongside Ashley Nagaoka in the H&N Digital Center. Thank you for being with us for This Is Now. We do want to get started with yet another pandemic record, right, Ash?
That's right. The State Health Department is reporting 6,252 new COVID infections today. The breakdown of cases include close to 4,000 on Oahu alone. The Big Island and Maui reporting counts in the 800s, and Kauai is adding 547 cases. We'll get back to the pandemic in just a moment, but first we want to get to the latest on the Tonga eruption and tsunami. Authorities say at least 3 people have been killed following the events, but it's feared the real number could rise very soon. Ian Lee reports on what's being called an unprecedented disaster in the Pacific.
Australia's Navy set off on a mission of mercy Tuesday, bringing badly needed supplies to devastated Tonga. An underwater volcano erupted, delivering unknown destruction and cutting communications to the island nation. Tongans outside the country say it's a painful wait to learn the fate of their loved ones.
The worst fear is the suffering of other people. That's hard to cope with.
So far, the only glimpse of the island comes from the sky. Surveillance planes snap photos of destroyed villages and a landscape covered in ash. Tongan authorities say the country suffered catastrophic damage.
We are all a bit in the dark about exactly the scale of damage or what people are experiencing.
Tonga's airport is still out of action.
Up to 200 volunteers are sweeping the runway in preparation for the supplies to land on Thursday or Friday.
The eruption triggered a tsunami that tore across the Pacific, hitting countries like Fiji, an island 500 miles away from the volcano. Tonga is only 40, and its Navy saw tsunami waves as high as 30 feet. Angela Glover died after being swept away when she went to the beach to rescue her dogs.
I will miss her and I will think of her every day until the day I die.
Tongan authorities fear the death toll will grow as the full scale of the disaster becomes clear. Ian Lee, CBS News.
Hawaii has around 8,500 people of Tongan descent. So many of them are still anxiously waiting to hear from their family members. And now we're learning that the communication cable that goes to that island nation may not be repaired for weeks. Rick Daysog has more.
We were just in total shock. I was in disbelief.
Langitoto Tongamoa grew up on Tonga, and his brother and aunt still live there. He says news of the volcanic eruption and the tsunami kept him up all weekend.
We're just staying up trying to find out more news of what's going on, but there was not even anything. We scrambled around to get a hold of our brother, but unfortunately he wasn't answering his phone.
Very stressful, as they struggle to know what's going on. And because they don't hear any news from Tonga.
While there are no reports so far of mass casualties, the giant ash cloud has contaminated much of the drinking water supply, which depend on rainwater and catchments.
They have big tank rainy water to collect the rainy water to drink from. And they said it's very dirty and, the raining water is not good anymore.
Tongan churches in Hawaii want to help provide relief for people stricken by the disasters. But without communication or aid workers on the ground, it's hard to organize relief efforts.
Since a fiber optic cable is cut, we are looking at possibly 2 weeks of no communication or limited communication.
The consular agency for Tonga here in Honolulu says it would be difficult for Tongan natives to return home to help their relatives. That's because the country was under strict COVID rules even before the disaster.
I know they really need the help because they're saying that the whole land is covered with ash.
Rick Daysog, Hawaii News Now.
A Kona business suffered tens of thousands of dollars in damage from the Tonga tsunami. Our Jolani Martinez has the story.
We spoke with Sequest Hawaii owner Manu Powers, who says the damage estimate is approaching $100,000. Still, she says it could have been much worse. She and her husband received a call around 4 Saturday morning saying the retail shop for their snorkeling tour business likely suffered tsunami damage. The surge, triggered by a massive eruption from a volcano in Tonga, was so strong it moved a nearly 300-pound propane tank across the yard, and it was an even bigger mess inside.
Once we opened up the office, everything that had been outside was inside. So we have sort of a rolling door, and anything that had not been bolted down, everything, because the propane tank was bolted down, obviously, got pushed into the office by the surge, sucked back out again, and even over a rock wall that was a couple feet high. We were bewildered. Everything was ruined. We figure we lost about, after going through it again over the last couple of days, about 95% of our inventory and our gear. That doesn't include electronics and our washer dryer, dishwasher, ice maker, refrigerator, all of those things, coolers, snorkels and masks, all of that is gone, and who knows where.
Powers says this is the second time her business has suffered tsunami damage. Back in 2011, waves washed away the entire building. She says everything they lost this time can eventually be replaced, and she's grateful that no one was hurt. The business's boats were not damaged. Sequest Hawaii was able to restart its snorkeling tours the next day. Powers says it's much needed income right now as the company tries its best to recover. Jolani Martinez, Hawaii News Now.
Some people have been able to order free at-home COVID tests today ahead of the federal government's official website launch tomorrow.
Are these orders being registered? Are they going to be able to get
that's beta testing.
Okay.
So meaning we're going to launch it formally tomorrow morning.
The Biden administration today quietly tested its website, covidtest.gov, which was operating at limited capacity, allowing some people to pre-order. White House officials say the site is in its beta phase to allow troubleshooting.
Every website launch, in our view, comes with risk. We can't guarantee there won't be a bug or two, but the best tech teams across the administration and the Postal Service are working hard to make this a success.
Some users immediately identified at least one problem. Orders made by different people living in the same apartment building but in different units were rejected as duplicates. Americans are supposed to be able to order up to 4 kits per address. Once ordered, tests are to be mailed within 7 to 12 days.
The state's health department has stopped providing our positivity rate because it says it simply cannot keep up with all the incoming tests.
It's frustrating at times. I can tell you that they're doing their best at this point because they are truly overwhelmed with the crisis that's gone on for 2 years. I hope that they'll be able to bring in more people because we need those numbers. The most important numbers right now, however, are the number of people that are in the hospital.
Yesterday, 346 people were hospitalized with COVID. Still, that's about 100 below the peak during the Delta surge.
The good news is that the proportion of ICU patients is staying low. The proportion of COVID patients on vents is staying low as well.
But hospital staffing is still a challenge. We're told about 1,400 frontline caregivers are out with COVID issues.
With the Omicron strain dominating in Hawaii, some doctors are now recommending throat swabs instead of nose swabs. Studies show that Omicron often appears first in the upper airways and throat. Dr. Scott Miskovich says you will find Omicron in the throat 2 days before it is detected in the nose. The FDA acknowledged last month that antigen tests have a reduced sensitivity to the Omicron strain. The agency issued emergency use authorizations for more accurate tests, but getting the test to the market takes time.
Every one of those little tests that you see someone holding where they're testing you has to go through an approval process through the CDC and the FDA. So what's happening is when they do their approval, they're all done with the nasal swab, which basically up until Omicron has been the most accurate way to detect COVID.
The CDC says at-home antigen tests like Binax are roughly 85% accurate in detecting positive cases. They recommend that throat swabs be collected only by a trained healthcare provider. On Hawaii Island, Queens North Hawaii Community Hospital is reinstating its no visitor policy starting today. Officials say limited exceptions will be made, such as for maternity patients and end-of-life care. Proof of vaccination and additional screening will be required.
On Maui, the sidelines at high school sporting events are quiet once again because of a ban on spectators. Now many parents and even Maui's mayor are asking the Maui Interscholastic League to reconsider that rule. Our Chelsea Davis has more from the Valley Isle.
15-year-old Kaylin Andrade scores a goal against Lahaina Luna Saturday night. It's the sophomore's first year on the Kinke Kaulike girls varsity soccer team, but none of her family members were there to watch her play.
It's kind of like sad because like ever since I was little, my parents were like always there, like my #1 supporters. And like when you play in a game, you always want someone to like be there, like cheer you on. And without them like there, it just feels different.
Naali'i won that game against the Lunas 10-0. Kaylin's mom, Angelia, wishes she was there.
We're just very proud parents, and it's unfortunate that this situation has kind of taken away some of that excitement from us.
Angelia and her husband are both vaccinated and boosted, but the new Maui Interscholastic rule states all MIL events will be limited to essential participants only, meaning no spectators, regardless of vaccination status. Angelia, thousands of other Maui parents, including the mayor, are asking MIL officials to reconsider.
If it's outdoors, I'm advocating for them to consider physical distancing and no food. And if it's indoors, 50% of the capacity of the facility itself, and allowing their parents at least to enjoy that. So that's very important.
We want to keep everybody safe. We understand. I understand I'm a frontline worker as well. We're following the rules that are being asked of us by masking up, social distancing, being vaccinated, and we're still not able to watch our children.
MIL officials did not respond to our request for an interview, but the website states they meet weekly to reassess. Reporting from Kahului, Chelsea Davis, Hawaii News Now.
Health experts say the transmissibility of Omicron plus pandemic fatigue may have a dangerous effect people trying to get COVID. Health leaders warn that while many people are experiencing mild symptoms with Omicron, that doesn't mean yours will be. They say you could also infect someone like the elderly who may get very sick, and you're also putting yourself at risk for long-haul COVID symptoms.
He's vaccinated. He actually got the Omicron variant. I don't know. He just went out and he was like, one day he was like, oh, I just bring on the COVID, and he got it.
We should all be doing what we can to avoid becoming infected with Omicron. We should all be doing what we can to avoid being part of this transmission link to other people, including our most vulnerable.
Meanwhile, as the nation battles this latest surge, there are signs of hope in some areas. Michael George has the latest from New York.
Omicron-fueled COVID cases are still surging across the nation. More than 5.4 million Americans tested positive last week, a new record. But the story is changing in New York City, where numbers are dropping fast in both cases and hospitalizations.
We are winning. You sent a clear message that vaccinations and booster shots are successful.
New York was one of the first places hit hard by the variant. And while the city is improving, health experts are warning COVID is here to stay.
If you look at the history of infectious diseases, we've only eradicated one infectious disease in man, and that's smallpox. That's not going to happen with this virus.
Michael George, CBS News, New York.
U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken will visit Ukraine this week. The visit comes as tensions rise between the U.S. and Russia over a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine. Blinken will meet with the Ukrainian president to show U.S. support. The trip follows inconclusive talks with Moscow last week. that failed to resolve disagreements over Ukraine and other security matters.
On Capitol Hill, the debate on two bills aimed at expanding voting access is underway. The Senate canceled a planned recess this week to discuss the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. The measures, which have already passed in the House, would make Election Day a national holiday and expand early voting and voting by mail. Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono had fiery comments on the Senate floor.
Republicans have decided that spreading misinformation and rigging elections by preventing people from voting is the only way they will retain their power.
Republicans have blocked the voting rights bill in the Senate, arguing it is a federal takeover of a state responsibility. This as the GOP has implemented strict new voting restrictions in states across the country.
And we'll be watching that for you. Ash, this is my last day filling in as Jonathan will be back tomorrow. I'm getting ready to head back to Sunrise tomorrow. And speaking of Sunrise, when I came in this morning, I just couldn't help myself.
Ooh.
I had to capture this on our tower cam. An absolutely gorgeous day that started early this morning as we were just getting ready. And now we're taking a live look outside and that same view. Goodness gracious, it's beautiful out there. But what can we expect for the rest of the week? Let's check in with Guy Hoggy.
How's it on this Tuesday? The weather's looking really nice, fairly clear skies this morning, but we are expecting some afternoon clouds and some afternoon showers because of the light winds. They'll be running soft and scrambled today, mostly under 15 miles an hour. And that might lead to some fog and some haze building up for some parts of the state. But don't expect a whole lot of rain today or for the next several days, actually. Again, with the light winds, we could see some spotty afternoon showers for a handful of spots. Now, as far as the surf, it will be rising this afternoon. North and West Shore is going to pick up a very good swell. And with the light winds, conditions are very good this morning. But an even bigger swell is coming in just before the weekend, so heads up on that. So the light wind weather pattern will continue for the next several days. And we could see a few more windward and Mauka showers from Thursday through Saturday on an incoming front. Keep it on Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
The year's first massive snowstorm is still causing chaos, bringing bad weather to 30 states. Emily Ikeda has the latest.
This morning, more fallout after a massive winter storm pummeled the majority of the country. Shovels and snowplows put to work as many head back to work. But the roadways proving difficult for even emergency crews to handle.
This is a major recovery. When you've got trucks hanging over the highway.
Driving conditions up and down the coast, treacherous. Crashes and spinouts piling up on roadways. In North Carolina, the storm taking a deadly turn. 2 killed after a car veered off the interstate. And injuries in Virginia, where State Patrol responded to 1,000 crashes and disabled cars on Sunday alone. More mayhem anticipated today. After temperatures plummeted overnight, officials are again warning of icy roads. The holiday weekend, a travel headache. At the airport in Buffalo, a record-breaking 16 inches, almost doubling the previous record. Across the country Monday, more than 5,000 flights were canceled or delayed.
So it has been crazy, really bad.
As millions are still digging out after snow, freezing rain, and high-powered winds caused chaos from Florida to New England. Dangerous wind gusts ripping off the roof of a nursing home in Maine, fueling monstrous waves in Massachusetts and causing coastal flooding in Connecticut, while 13 states logged double-digit snowfall totals. The winter weather beatdown dumping at least 20 inches in parts of Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, where heavy snow is being blamed for collapsing a college dorm's roof. The cold weather wallop hanging on in what is looking to be a long winter.
Tomorrow, 5G technology kicks in across the country, but airlines warn interference on their planes' landing instruments could impact close to half of commercial and cargo flights. On Sunday, the FAA made a special approval for almost half of commercial flights to operate at about 54% of airports across the country. And earlier this month, AT&T and Verizon delayed the 5G rollout to create so-called buffer zones around many airports. Still, airlines don't think it's enough. They warn sensitive flight instruments like autopilot and terrain warning may be compromised in low visibility conditions, and they're asking for lower 5G strength around 50 airports. AT&T and Verizon have not responded to the airline's comments yesterday, but say the 5G technology has been deployed to 40 other countries without aviation issues. Airlines are already looking at cutting U.S.-bound international flights starting tomorrow.
All right, and we have a great story for you. This weekend, a legendary airman who flew himself into history passed away. Lester Holt, though, remembers one of the very last of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Charles McGee was a fighter pilot with the legendary Tuskegee Airmen, the all-black unit that broke racial barriers in the military, fighting for their country and for their country's respect. He amassed more than 400 career combat missions in World War II and later in Korea and Vietnam.
After my first flight, I was hooked. I loved flying.
McGee died on Sunday at 102 years old. Vice President Kamala Harris calling him an American hero. Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin III writing, "I'm also incredibly grateful for his sacrifice, his legacy, and his character." I spoke with McGee in 2020, soon after he was awarded the rank of Brigadier General by President Trump.
General McGee, our nation salutes you. Thank you, sir.
Has life changed a lot now that you are general?
A lot to be thankful for because of that.
What are your most vivid memories of being a Tuskegee Airman at war?
Although we didn't change segregation, we provided a background that gave our Air Force the opportunity, when the air and ground portions separated, to bring about equal access and equal opportunity for all.
His message to young Americans.
And the knowledge to know that they can achieve if they believe in it themselves, and don't let others tell them that they can't do something.
And that was Lester Holt reporting. What an American. What a life. Well, one other good story to tell you about. If you still have your Christmas tree up, probably time to take it down, but no judgment here. The Brookfield Zoo found a way to recycle more than 700 trees from the community. They were decorated by community organizations and companies. Now they're turning them into mulch and landscaping, flower beds, and some of these, of course, are being repurposed for those animals, enriching the lives of several of the animals, like polar bears, lions, African painted dogs, snow leopards. Look at that lion, having a great time.
Oh, yeah.
And enjoying the old Christmas tree. Love that video.
Good use of that. So the TSA has released its list of the top 10 catches of 2021, revealing the strangest and most deadly items travelers have tried to bring through screening. Now, remember that pistol on a belt buckle discovered at Honolulu's airport back in April? Well, that came in at number 7 on the list. The traveler was headed to San Francisco but was arrested instead. Now, number 1 on the list, a chainsaw someone tried to bring through New Orleans. Yeah, I mean...
Just traveling with my chainsaw.
Yeah.
Although we know here in the islands, a lot of people travel for work. They're carrying their tools.
Right.
So I guess maybe the chainsaw needs to be checked.
Exactly. Who knows? Time for some good news. Did you see who was in town, you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Big reveal coming up. It was Adam Sandler, of course, spotted in Kailua at Buzz's Steakhouse. Now, Sandler is no stranger to Hawaii. He's reportedly here with co-star Jennifer Aniston. They're shooting Murder Mystery 2. The original came out in 2019 on Netflix, and it's really good.
Well, thank you so much for being with us on This Is Now, and Jonathan will be back with you tomorrow.
Thanks for covering Case.
Yeah.
What brings you across the pond?
It's my honeymoon.
Where's your husband?
Dead.